spot. Hi everybody, my name is Craig DeVideo. Today is March 2nd, 2017. By the time you watch this video might be very dated, might be very old. I'd like to first thank my, what would be the spring class of 2017's multi-camera class for allowing us to do basically a little tutorial on some of the things that are involved in multicam. So one or two or three of the students in this particular group have, that you'll see evidenced at the end on the credits, designed the outline for today. And I'm going to be following an outline. So we're just going to talk a little bit about multicam and some of the tech that's involved. So to start off, of course, multi-camera means going on location, shooting multiple cameras in a variety of ways. Why don't we cut to that camera now? And you can see this camera as an example. Let's cut to that camera. This camera is shooting a hard-shelled case over here. In this hard-shell case, will hold something called our multi-camera live switcher. Let's switch to this camera over here. And this camera shows the man or woman, person operating the actual physical switcher. Our switcher for the purposes of this conversation, and you can call the shots there, Elizabeth. The purpose of our conversation is the Anycast, which is a Sony product. Basically, it's a computer, a really big laptop, that allows us to switch from camera to camera and output to a recording device. The Anycast is I'm going to walk around this side now, so you're going to be making decisions to follow me with your cameras, however you'd like to do that. The Anycast system comes in a hard-shelled box, and according to my grid and outline, we're going to be doing the hard-shelled box first. So this is the hard-shelled box used for the Anycast, right? I don't know if you want to get a shot of that box from the other camera. Good, okay, it's this camera, excellent. So this box right here is a hard-shell box we carry the Anycast in. Of course, these boxes have fairly big latches, and you know, you got to find methods to crack open the latches to get the actual box. Sometimes there's a lock here to hold the box together. Inside these Pelican-style hard-shell boxes, there's usually padding to protect the tech. There's usually some other accessories like old power supplies or old input-output devices. And then we have bags of cables and adapters. And these bags of cables and adapters preferably would stay together with the device itself. So we usually have bags that are identified as the Anycast bag, as an example, or the audio mixer bag or something. So let's make sure that it all stays together in one spot. As we continue forward, according to our outline here, I'm going to go around the front of the system again. And if you could get a shot, if that's the word you want to use, cut to a camera that shows the actual Anycast. I guess it would be camera number 2, right? Excellent, very good. So the Anycast is as a device, is a fairly spectacular video switcher, as evidenced by Andrew using it today. He can kind of point to some things. Can we get a closer shot? Can you zoom in to the Anycast? Thank you. So we'll stay on the screen for a moment since we're here. On this screen, and you'll see my hand coming in now, right? On this screen, you have two screens, a player and a recorder, basically, or a preview and a program. These screens give us an allowance to see what you're going to be switching to and what you are currently on. Down here, if you could tilt down a little bit, please. Thank you. These are your input screens. We primarily use 4 inputs, camera 1, 2, 3, and 4. We infrequently use these alternate screens or these alternate inputs. This system has many, many, many inputs, which this camera could identify if they would zoom in for us. Can this camera do that? And can we switch to this camera, please? Thank you. The back of the Anycast, I don't know how well that camera can see because I am no longer looking at the actual physical monitors, but the inputs and outputs of the Anycast have a variety of opportunity starting from the left-hand side. Of course, there is a power supply. Make sure you don't ever pull that power supply out during production. You'll shut down the computer itself. There's a variety of inputs and outputs of audio. They are RCA-based, XLR-based, and quarter-inch based. We also have some very high-level professional ability to hook this thing up to an intercom system as well as to a computer system with the RGB function. We have composite YC and composite normal BNC video in and out. But the benefit of owning this device or having access is that these inputs over here are in and outs in the SDI world, the serial digital interface world. So this device itself, we're using traditional every now and then, generic BNC to BNC cables, meaning that the cable is a normal RGU 59 professional level coaxial cable with BNC tips. These are not actually SDI cables. You could actually buy true SDI cables, which are BNC tipped cables, which are coaxial cable, but they're made to carry a stronger signal or maybe a signal that would have a faster data rate or something, but we just use traditional BNC and we've been successful with that. So the issues of how to run the Anycast come up in conversation. It's a little complex to do that in this particular conversation, but I think for the purposes of looking back at this camera, which is which camera this is, I guess this is camera 2. If this camera can switch and get a close-up of the actual, not too far, I mean, I don't want you to, to zoom, so tilt down here so you can see the actual Anycast, and if you could push in a little bit, you can see the actual display, and if you stop there, it would be good. Thank you very much. So obviously you have a row of buttons at the top that are glowing, and this is, of course, in this particular case, these are your programs. So whatever you're pushing here will dictate which camera you go to, right? That's an example, right? So you can see actually switching back and forth from camera to camera. This is the camera that's seeing us right now. That's why it's not switching. And then you've got what they call the preset cameras. Could you zoom out a little bit, camera 2? So you can see the screen. Could you zoom out just a little bit and stop? Thanks. And if I go over here, you can see me as I switch. These cameras switch up here on the preset, right? It makes sense. And I'm glad that camera has an image. We'll cut to that camera too, right? So the benefit of having access to this particular kind of live switching device is that you also have a live keyboard. And the live keyboard is something that we can take out and make mobile. It almost never happens. This isn't something we do that often, but it is truly wireless. You can bring it over and actually sit and type a few feet away. But most of the time, to protect the keyboard, we turn it upside down and lock it back in so you don't end up pushing options. But it does allow you to make titles over moving video and things like that as well. So there are benefits to using this particular system. Over here, if this camera can zoom in over here for me, right? Am I okay with that, Elizabeth? Okay, thank you. You can see there are options that are hard to describe, but there are menu options and entry and exit options to get into menus for the screenage. Again, if this camera can zoom out, please, and show me here. Up here, just zoom in here a little bit and stop. If I go ahead and just as an example, go into the menu function, you can see that menus open up. And this allows you to get into a whole bunch of options and changing video and audio personalities, including naming conventions for the cameras and things. Okay, you can zoom out. You can take over again, Andrew. I'll go in front of this camera. You can decide to give directions, please. Thank you. So for the purpose of our conversation today, the Anycast is a very useful tool for the purposes of multi-camera live production. It allows you to also send signal out of it, the Anycast, to a Ethernet style jack and do live webcasting, right? We haven't really used it for that as much, but it has a technology built in for that as well. So that will be the end of today's seminar on the Anycast. We'll be picking up on another subject in a few moments. Thank you. So I just got a cue verifying that I guess we're live and we're recording. Hi everybody, Craig DeVideo back here once again. And we're in multicam class and we're going to be talking about the next subject, which is the digital recording technology we currently use as part of the multicam class. There's a large organization, a company called Atomos, which is spelled A-T-O-M-O-S, and they have a website called atomos.com. And they make a variety of different technologies, one of which is something called the Samurai system. The Samurai system is this device here, if we can get a close-up shot of it first, please. And then make a decision to cut to it. Okay. So this device here is a little tiny recording device. I'm being very delicate with it because it is actually recording the show that we're doing right now. So this device here is actually a digital recording device. It has a hard drive. Could we get a close-up shot of the hard drive from one of the cameras? Good. It has a hard drive that we slide in. It's a standard hard drive you can buy from kind of any electronics store, basically. But it's a hard drive we slide in, and this device then with a SDI input right here. There we go. With an SDI input, we can then take SDI out from our recording device, our generating device, which in this case is a live switcher. The benefit of owning or having access to something like this device, like this Samurai system, is that we can record live to a hard drive. The hard drive records in very large, high-resolution QuickTime files. I'm going to put it on its face for a moment so you can see the back of it. There you go. Okay. This takes 2 batteries. As you see, these are Sony-style batteries. I want to be very careful with this device, as I said, so I'm trying not to push it around way too much. On the bottom of the device itself, there are traditional threaded ports for you to thread this to a tripod, as an example, or a light stand, so you could have this off unit, off Video Village, right? This has a in and output port for SDI. There are mini, or what they call micro BNC ports. And then there are normal traditional 1/8 inch ports for in and out, basically headphone in and out, which is kind of like microphone in and out, right? That's kind of what the objective is. So you can go a mic directly in or a line in, that's an 1/8 inch port. And what we do here is you actually physically record, and I'm going to take this out of the record mode for a moment. And you can see there are features here that are, stop, play, monitor, menu. And so this device, and we should probably cut to this camera for a moment. This device as a device, and again, I'm not that interesting, so I want you to zoom out to include the device. This device as a device gives us the ability to record our show and monitor our show at the same time. So we're not going to go through a how to use the Samurai because I would need to stop the show to do that. That makes no sense, right? We need to stop our tutorial. We are taking the output of this particular device to a set of speakers. That's what these are right here. I don't know what camera is seeing this, but maybe you can cut to a camera that's seeing the speaker good. Excellent. And this speaker here, there you go. It's just a generic everyday Roland powered speaker. And when I bring this volume up, you will hear me with my feedback, right? So I'll bring the volume down. So that gives us the ability to review and watch the show, after the show has been recorded, right? The company that makes this system can supply you with a really nice hard shell case. You buy this as a complete system, by the way. You buy the case, you buy the actual physical device, you buy all the cables and things like that. You can see in this kind of case, they give you a playback device, and this device is an actual external hard drive holder, and it has USB 3 as well as FireWire ports, giving you the ability to plug into a computer and plug your hard drive into it. And that gives you the ability to actually play back your content, copy it over. There is, in most cases, a battery charger system, right? And all the appropriate cables and some other accessories. What we in many cases do is, they'll give you extra cables, by the way. What we in many cases do is we take the Samurai, if you don't mind, please, let's get a shot of the Samurai from any of the cameras, that's fine. We get the Samurai, and not only do we take the output of our switcher to the Samurai, but we can take the Samurai back out with another cable, right, like this as an example, and we can go from this Samurai to an alternate Samurai, which means we record to more than one digital device at one time, which is a very cool thing as a safety and as a backup. So for the purpose of today's conversation, I'm going to stop in a few moments and thank everybody for watching. But in a capsule, the Samurai system comes as a complete kit in a hard-shelled case with all the accessories. We're obligated to make sure everything is there upon being finished with the unit, of course. And I think the most important element with the Samurai is that there are a variety of recording technologies. You can go 720, you can go 1080, you can record out of a camera that has an SDI out and just mount this to the camera. This can be your recording device on a video camera. And you could also have a video camera that has an HDMI out, buy a $200 some odd adapter, transferring your signal from HDMI to SDI and go directly into this. It's a very cool feature. So this is what we use for the purpose of doing our shows here in multicam class. And that'll be the end of part 2 of our seminar today. Hi everybody, this is really dramatic. Today we're going to talk about monitors, yay! To continue forward with our multicam project. In today's class we've experimented by doing a multicam live switch, teaching you about multicam, and in this particular case we'll talk about monitors. I don't really know when you'll be taking a class like this, but monitors are of course going to change. We have 3 manifestations of monitors. One are standard definition monitors. Second level are plasma or LCD or a version of that kind of flat screen monitor in high definition. And then there are the third level, which is the super high definition, which are the ultra high definition. So you have basically like a 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000 when you think about monitoring devices. So the big monitor here, or the bigger monitor here, this particular one, all this is a generic, everyday, normal, professional level monitor meant for the television filmmaking industry more than your home, more than Joe consumer, right? Joe homeowner. And this monitor has a variety of options that maybe wouldn't exist on a home device. There are more than one input as an example. So I have a feeling this monitor has just decided to go to heaven. And I'm going to allow it to continue recycling its electronics while I move on to the next subject. So this monitor has a variety of inputs and outputs. Professional level monitors have these features. This monitor has a DC input, DC standing for direct current, and direct current is fundamentally the battery input. The reason this monitor is important and kind of exciting is that on the top of this monitor there is a block here. And this block here will be where you take a big giant Anton Bauer brick battery and lock it on, and then with the attached cable, you'd plug the cable into the monitor and you'd be basically powering the monitor from an external device, an external battery. Very, very cool. If you aren't on location powering it from an external battery, then you power it by normal everyday wall electricity, 120 volt. In America, we call it 110, but it's actually 120, right? So then you have a normal everyday plug that plugs into the actual monitor. And again, you have to have these monitors with you, these cables with you. Make sure you don't forget them because they're not easy to buy at your local Radio Shack or Best Buy. The monitor, however, is professional because of the actual ports. So this monitor has a variety of standard definition video and audio, video input and output. So it has a standard composite everyday normal BNC. BNC is actually a professional feature for video, but it's a BNC input for almost all of its inputs. So you have a BNC composite input and BNC composite output. The word composite in this case fundamentally means it's a line signal, just like you would use on your old gaming system from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's the actual same signal that's been around since the invention of television. Standard definition, normal, everyday video input is what's considered composite or line. It just so happens we're using a BNC tip in this case, right? It might be RCA, but we're using BNC. This monitor has a video in and a video out in BNC. It also has a video in and video out in YC, which is a separation of luminance and chrominance. Some people called it an S adapter or an S cable. Some people actually used to call it the Super VHS cable, which was the wrong name. It's actually a separation of luminance and chrominance. That's why they call it an S for separate, YC, brightness and color. And then you have ports here for basically RGB. It's called PR, PB, and Y. So this is some form of component. So you'd be able to have a better quality signal. If you have a device that outputs a component, you would see a better quality signal on the monitor. Now, beyond that, this also has some future capability. If you look over here, they have DVI in, as well as normal everyday VGA in, which is cool. Computer-based input, so it's like a computer monitor too. And it has a traditional, everyday, normal, current HDMI port. So you can go HDMI out of your laptop or out of your cell phone or something like that. What it does not have, this particular monitor, is an SDI in. So it limits our ability if we want to go SDI out of our switcher, as an example, to it, you can't do that. You'd have to get an adapter, right? But it has so many ports, it just doesn't have SDI. So for the purposes of today, that's this monitor being a big plasma screen. This one over here, as an example, this alternate monitor is a professional level monitor. I'm going to hold this one up for a few moments. This monitor is a monitor that takes batteries as well here. These are NP style Sony batteries, as well as it has the ability to be plugged into the wall and for you to have normal electricity as well, right? So it takes both versions of power. It has a variety of video and audio ins in some cases, and a variety of video and audio outs in some cases. All monitors are kind of different. This monitor is a tube monitor. That's why it's in the square tube. It's a traditional standard definition monitor. And with a push of a button, however, you can make this go widescreen. So you can actually see your old widescreen technologies. And in so many cases, we're still reviewing material in standard definition, even though we have HD technology. So there's nothing wrong with this monitor. It's the kind of monitor that's properly shielded. That's why it's in the big hard-shelled, steel compartment like it is. And, they're rock solid. Sony made beautiful product. Of course, so did Panasonic and JVC and all the rest of the manufacturers. But we took to Sony early on, and we have these monitors. So when you're in a class like this, I don't know what kind of monitoring device you're going to use. If you don't mind, can we have this camera follow me over here? Follow me over here. If you look over here, there are some monitors over here we're still even using in class that are big, giant, larger versions of those small Sony monitors. And they work perfectly fine. They're very effective. They do their job. And it gives us the ability to still show things in standard definition or as we said, in a version of RGB, okay, which is component. And otherwise, that would be the end of today's seminar on monitors. I want to thank my multicam class for the purpose of today for allowing us to display these items. We'll be picking up with our next subject in a moment. Thanks. Hi everybody, well welcome back. This is the next installment of the multicam class. We're actually at week number 9 of the spring quarter 2017. So again, depending on when you review this material, we might have different technologies. Today, the class is getting an opportunity to experiment once again with the multicam kit, and we're continuing with our seminars. Today's seminar, according to our outline, is going to be, I actually held that up upside down. That was funny. We're going to do sound for the purposes of today, and we're going to talk about the speaker systems and the microphone systems. So I'm going to talk about microphones first. Is it okay? All right. I decided to wear a microphone today. That's a lavalier mic. It is the only mic in the room for the purposes of today, and it's actually hidden under my shirt. So what I did for this example is I took a lavalier mic that we have, and I got a piece of gaffer's tape, and I taped it to my shirt inside my shirt. I suspect you can see that, right? I don't know if you've zoomed in or whatever. Okay, it's up to you. You're supposed to be giving those directions, okay? And That's our microphones. When I tap it, you hear bank, 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 right? Am I right? And I'm not going into your ears. Sorry about that. And I've dropped the actual XLR microphone cable down my shirt, down my pant, out my ankle. Could you shoot the floor, please, here? Get a shot of the floor. So I dropped it out of my ankle, and it's actually on the floor. It is a actual physical ECM 44B style Sony microphone lavalier. Takes a battery. I've plugged it into an XLR, cable, and that is traced and then cabled and plugged directly into our Anycast in the microphone or line XLR in. We've told the Anycast that this is a microphone port, not a line port. That's why it's receiving my microphone. So the Anycast has a variety of inputs for the purposes of sound. Let's move this over a little bit like that, right? And we are using input 1 and 2 here, 1 and 2. That's why they're lit and the green lights are actually illuminated. And down here it says 1 and 2. So we've gone into the assign mode. There's a bunch of things in the internal menu, one of which says audio assign. Could you press the button, please, TD? And could you pan over, please, camera? Okay. You'll see that there are options here. It says audio 1, assign, line in, line out, or line in, left, right. So we've assigned this one singular mic to one particular input. That was what we did to allow us. So each camera, as we switch from camera to camera to camera, the camera systems that we switch to, and let's cut to this camera over here, please, right here. As we cut from camera to camera to camera, the audio follows each input. For the purposes of microphoning or using microphones, that's what we've done for the purposes of today. We also traditionally put a shotgun microphone or secondary microphone up in the air and let it capture ambient sound. And we utilize a mix of channel 1 being microphone 1, channel 2 being microphone 2, and that in editing you ask the editor to choose microphone 1 or microphone 2. So for the rest of the conversation, we want to talk about the speaker systems, right? So we basically have to make a decision how we're going to listen to what's coming out of our recording source. And our recording source for the purposes of today is a digital recorder called a Samurai. And we're taking SDI out of our switcher into the Samurai. The Samurai has headphone outs, literally a headphone out. And so we've taken the output of the Samurai headphone output to the headphones that the actress is today wearing. These are stereo headphones. There's a normal everyday headphone set with a stereo cable, meaning it has 2 prongs or 2 stripes on the cable. We also have the ability to use speaker systems in this room or in a room like this. So we have an amplified speaker meaning that this speaker has an amplifier built into it. And this amplified speaker has multiple inputs. One is a line input and one is a microphone input. Basically, it's the attenuation of the signal. Either one's more powerful than the other. Line is, of course, more powerful than mic. But these are 1/4 inch inputs. These are not RCA. These are not 1/8 inch. These are very big inputs. They're not quite as big, of course, as XLR. But so we need an adapter to go to this input. So what we've done over here is we have 2 speakers. And we get a cable, a little kind of generic, simple cable that is a 1/8 inch cable. I don't know if you can get a picture of this. You can direct your cameras. I don't know if you can get a picture of this. So you can get a picture of this. This is an 1/8 inch cable that on one end is an 1/8 inch male with 2 stripes, meaning it's a left and right. And we've gone down this cable to adapt this cable, and the end of this cable happens to be RCA. So it's actually an 1/8 inch cable that breaks off into 2. And then we use an adapter, yeah, it's proper grammar. And this adapter is an RCA to 1/4 inch adapter in mono. So we take the adapter, plug it in, and we're able then to go into our more advanced speaker system. You could do this from your cell phone or your pad or your Surface or whatever iteration of a portable media device you'll have in 10 years, right? But for the purpose of us, we might use our cell phones because we have music on our cell phones, or we get the music from the internet or something like that. You can go out of your cell phone directly into the speaker, which is very cool. What we usually do in an environment like this is we go out of our recording device, headphone out, to our microphone in of our speaker, right? Giving us audio that's amplified. The problem with that is this. I'm going to unplug the headphone out so our actress no longer has headphones in. And I'm going to plug this into my speaker, which has been plugged into power. And then, of course, what you get is you get that feedback loop, because I'm speaking, it's coming through our system, out of our speakers, back into my microphone. You get that terrible, 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 inappropriate, unprofessional feedback loop, which I'm allowing for right now so you can kind of hear it, right? So this is something we'd never want to have happen, and get fired for things like that. So I just wanted to provide evidence that that can happen. Our actress will once again wear her earphones, and gave you an opportunity to get some ideas about what's going on with sound. So that'll be the end for this moment of audio, microphones, and the speaker system for sound. That'll be end of this module. Wow, I just got a cue from our director. Okay, everybody, welcome back once again. This is the next installment of the multicam class, giving a training module on some of the technology in multicam. This is, again, week 9 of the spring 2017 quarter, and my name is Craig DeVideo. This installment, this section, is going to be about communications. Now, all these little installments haven't been the most inclusive. We haven't included every single piece. So there are going to be some things that we're going to leave out. But for the purpose of today, today's installment is on, with the title below me, communications. So how do we talk to the cameras? That's a great question, right? We have to find ways of communicating with our camera operators. There we go. It's probably a little too close there. Right here, we have a little box, and this little box here is part of a system. This box is made by the Telex Corporation. It's not really that important you see the name or anything like that, but I just wanted to verify the corporation who made this particular box. This box is a communications hub. At the bottom of this, you have 3 different ports. One is for the earphones, one is a receiving of signal, and one is a loop through of sending of signal. So you'll see there's identifiers on the bottom of the actual box, the Telex box here. On top of the box, there is a set of buttons where I can push a button and it lights up, and I don't know if you can see the green lamp just went on, which means that this system is now activated in a manner where the person that's wearing the headphone systems, wearing the earphones, can communicate with the people around him or her. We traditionally have to find a place to put these back on camera, so because there's a little hook here, I usually put this on the hand grip because it doesn't damage anything, right? That's one of the reasons the hand grip exists, so you can put things on it, let alone hold it. This system requires you to have a headset. I don't know, can you get a shot of this headset? So a headset here is a traditional headset made by, again, the Telex Corporation. Sometimes we use Clearcom, which is another corporation that makes intercom systems. And in this particular case, they all kind of are interchangeable in many cases. So the headset has a microphone. Make sure you can see the system I'm pointing at here. Has a microphone that you speak into, and of course the headset itself. First, which camera am I on here? Here we go. Now because I'm dressed all in black, I'm trying to get out of the way so you can see it. So I'm going to put this on my head and be a little comedic about it. So obviously once you wear something like this, and I can actually hear the camera controls at this point, I can hear the director talking to me. You're able to interact and listen and talk to the people that are around you, and they can give directions and you hear the directions they're giving, right? There is a dial over here, excellent, and that dial will increase or decrease the volume of your earphones itself. Get a shot from this camera. There we go. They'll increase the earphones by you increasing this dial. So you don't, a lot of people say, oh my God, it's too loud, and it's too loud because they have the physical dial-up too loud. In our particular case, we discourage you from talking. We want you just to listen. So in a lot of cases, this is the part of the industry where we say become a sponge, not a shield. So I'm not looking for you to deflect and answer questions. I'm looking for you to take commands and take critique, right? So if you're told to do something, you just go do it. Because in this case, we're like all soldiers, right? We just do our job. And the same thing goes for when you're told something about your video programs. If your video program has an error in it, you just go fix it. You don't get mad at the professor and say, you believe something different. If it's wrong, it's wrong. So if you're told to move the camera in your earphones, you shouldn't be wanting to have a conversation back with the director, as an example. I shouldn't be talking to Elizabeth and telling her, oh no, don't cut the camera 1, cut the camera 2, right? That's not my job. That's her job to make those decisions. And if I'm on camera 2 and she says to pan, I should be panning a fraction of a second after she tells me to do it, because that's how quick I am on my response, right? So this is a listen, don't speak back unless you're told to speak back. And that's when you would then go back to your telex box and you would initiate and push that talk back feature. And then you would initiate that and a little green light will come on and you're able to talk back to the people that are talking to you, right? So for the purpose of your camera, there's always a lot of cable and a lot of devices that you communicate with the main hub, which is your director. Now, if you guys can get a shot of our box over here, the output of this device is actually going out to one camera, looping out of that camera to a second camera, and then out to the third camera, as an example, then out to the director. So that's the loop out. And then the other option of this is going out of this to our technical director. So she's making a decision. She just switched to herself, which is weird. You just switched to yourself. All right, you can switch back to me, I guess. I'm going to stand up because I'm getting old. I don't want to be on my hands and knees here doing that. As you can see, this particular system, being a telex system, has a bunch of buttons in the front that we don't necessarily need to review or go through or make an attempt to explain. But these buttons give you the ability to select and change options on what's going out to the intercom systems around the room. We're actually using it in the most simple way. So we're just literally going out of it. So you would go out of it to one camera and then loop out. Is there a possibility you can get a shot with that camera to this camera? So you can show this camera, follow me over. So you can see that this camera operator here has a unit on his camera, right? And then he's wearing an earphone system, and he's really nicely lit from behind because you have that backlight. That's why I wanted to come over here, right? And so his output of his unit is going out to the other camera operator. Could you switch to this camera now and show this camera operator as an example? Right, so the output of your camera is coming over to this telex unit. So that's how our camera operators are interacting. And if you don't mind, please, can we swing the cameras around both and point them at our director for a moment and give her a moment's credit? And then you decide when you're going to switch. Direct yourself now. So that's our director, right, making decisions on what she's doing. And then we, of course, hooked up more than one monitor. Can we show the wide angle again, this other camera? And so you can see that we hooked up multiple monitors here so she could see all three cameras making decisions on what's important and what's not. So we'll switch back to me now on this camera to get it away from her because she's a little embarrassed on camera there. It's kind of funny. So for the purpose of our conversation today, obviously the most important element in a large group program is communication. So that's how we communicate amongst ourselves, is through an intercom system that's wired. However, the realities are, in every industry, there are different ways of communicating. Some people communicate via cell phones. Some people have little radio systems. And the end result is you have to figure out ways of telling your crew what to do, when to do it, and to adhere to the chain of command. And whatever your director says, you do. And that's the end of today's seminar on communications. What camera am I on? This camera? That camera? Yeah. All right, everybody. So this is the last installment for the multicam class spring of 2017. We are at week 9 doing some experiments here in the Art Institute of Philadelphia studios. And today's last subject matter is about cables. And there's a little joke in our industry. A couple of the other professors had talked about what to name this course. I'll turn to this camera now. And we said we should name this course Cables. Nothing more than just cables. Okay, it's all about cables and adapters. You can switch this camera on the wide angle lens. There you go. So we have got a lot of things happening here in the studio, one of which is cables. Could you do me a favor and just kind of video record the ground? Can you get a shot of the ground? So we have a huge spaghetti mess in here. Sometimes this is inappropriate. Sometimes it's great in that you tried your best. Like if you can get a shot of this particular setup is really neat. You see they spooled the cables, as did they. They put a piece of tape over it, trying to gain control of the cables. It's really, there's not a whole lot of romance when it comes down to cables. Cables can be messy. So we've got really 3 things to talk about today. I don't know what you're switching to, so I can't see. One of which is that we have adapters, and then we have cables. So there's a little bag of adapters that the multicam class uses every day. So this is an example of an adapter that is a BNC adapter, male, from, don't pan down, from RCA. So this is an RCA, come on, adjust for me, there we go. This is an RCA female adapter to BNC male. Stay where you are, don't switch to another camera. And as an example, you have another adapter that's BNC male to RCA male. And for what it is, we've got a whole entire bag of adapters, right? So point is that there's an adapter for virtually everything. And in multicam class, you will find this bag available to you. You may have to adapt a cable from one format to another. As an example, this cable, which is a very, very heavy duty cable, you can see it's got that heavy duty look to it, really kind of a thick, very industrial cable. This cable happens to be 1/4 inch on one end and 1/4 inch on the other end. So this could be a cable meant for a speaker system, like an amplifier from a guitar, or from an amplifier to a speaker, or from audio to audio in a patch bay. But you got this really heavy duty, thick cable, not a real thin, terrible cable you'd buy from your local electronics store if you're just trying to make a dub. This is a really thick, heavy, so you get a much better signal when you're trying to transfer, again, audio or video or electronic signal through cables. You need a heavy-duty cable. While I'm here, since I unwound this cable, and you can see that the cable's got really thick, heavy-duty ends, please don't let these ends slam into the ground. And that's how you break adapters. I don't care how thick you think the cable is or how resilient you think that the physical adapters are. Please don't let them hit the ground. There's no reason for that. So anyway, regarding these cables, in most cases, there'll be a little piece of Velcro on the cable. And the Velcro is meant to, once you wrap the cable, to wrap it correctly and put the Velcro on it. So keep that in mind. Be cognizant of that. In the television classes and in audio production and film production, we teach something called over-under. I'm not going to teach that here today, but I'm going to go over it briefly. Over-under is when you get a cable and you wrap it over once, and you find a method of taking that second wrap, and usually what I encourage everyone to do is to go over once, and then with your hand like this, put your wrist up in the air, and go under. And then you go over, and then you go under, and you go over. And what that does is that when you spool your cable out, you have very little kinks. Yes, you may end up having a kink every now and then, but you don't have, as many because you wrapped it correctly. So I'm going to go over, under, almost over, under there. And then I'm going to use my Velcro to Velcro it back in place and make all of my students and all of my peers that are faculty, administration, and staff happy because I made a very nicely wrapped cable that gets put back in the bag safely for the next use, right? So this is one kind of cable. We, of course, have many other kinds of cables or types of cables. We have cables that are very, very long as well. You can see this cable is huge. This is a very, very, very long cable, very thin and flexible. a little bit different than the other cable. That doesn't mean it's lower quality in transmission of signal, but certainly it's a more flexible cable. And this one has XLR tips. So male XLR to female XLR, and you can run this. This might be a 100-foot cable. We don't have a demarcation on the cable knowing the length of the cable. We should really do that, right? We should unwind all of our cables and measure them and put an ID on them. But this is an example of another cable that's been wound, hopefully correctly, so when it gets unwound and used in classroom time, it's easy to use the first time because it has no kinks or limited kinks. And then, of course, we have other cable that is very long as well. As an example, this is a BNC cable. And BNC cable is primarily used for video signal, or in this case, maybe HDMI. I'll come close and we'll see if we can get a picture of this one again. So this is a male BNC, and we have male on one end, and again on the other end of this same cable, we have male on both ends, giving us a very, very long cable. And when somebody says to the cage or the equipment depot, they need a BNC to BNC cable, what they mean is they need a very, very long cable that has BNC male tips on both ends. So this cable, again, if it's wrapped correctly, which is a cool thing, you know, it gives you the ability to unwrap it, enjoy it, and then just a lot of work wrapping it back up. Right? We sometimes put identifiers like numbers. In this case, it says the word camera 3 on it. So at one point, somebody named that camera 3. I don't know why, but they did. And then, you know, we know that this should be the camera 3 cable on a very consistent basis if you're running a very long cable to those cameras. I put this one away. And then, of course, you have shorty cables or shorter cables. And again, this is a small BNC to BNC. You know, 6 feet, 8 feet long, something like that, 10 feet long. And on both ends are BNC tips. So you might get a shorty cable that's BNC or RCA or XLR or 1/4 inch or 1/4 inch. You might get a medium or a very, very long one. All of them should be wrapped neatly, and all of them should be Velcroed. And if you do need Velcro, we've got a whole entire Velcro roll stash, you know, in the toolkit, and they should all be put away for future use and put away correctly and neatly. And again, if a cable needs an adapter, there are adapters in the adapter kit. And for the purposes of this conversation about cables and length and styles, there are a couple other varieties that we didn't go through today, certainly. May I see your cable from your headphones, please? Sure. Thank you. This is an example, and many of you will see this cable because you're probably using this cable more often than not in today, because this kind of cable is a cable you use for your headphones, and you're going into your devices like into your car. This is an 1/8 inch to 1/8 inch. They call it, you know, mini to mini. This is stereo because it has 2 stripes on it, and this is just as valuable and just as important as other cables are. Now, we're talking about technology that's meant for video and audio in general. We're not talking about FireWire cables, thank you, or USB 2 cables, or HDMI cables, or things like that, which are primarily computer-based cables. We're talking about audio-video technology cables. And for all intents and purposes, I think we're done. We didn't go through electricity or electrical cables. Maybe that could be something we do another day. But the same kind of rules in most cases apply for adapters and lengths and styles. And that'll be the end of today's seminar on cables. And I thank you for watching the Multicam Classes tutorials.